Welcome back to Adventures in Dentures. Today we're going to do denture setups. The doctor has seen the patient and marked the bite rooms for us. Let's get started. Here we have our articulated sets of bite rims. You can see where the doctor had marked the midline, canine lines, and high lip line. The doctor has selected a shade, which we'll go with, and we need to know whether it's a female patient, a male patient. That will determine the shape and mold of the teeth we're going to use. You will use a rounder mold of tooth slightly for the females and a more square angled tooth for males. You should look at all your charts that you receive for the tooth selection from the variety of companies that are out there, and they'll give you an idea of how to look at the tooth in all dimensions: height, width, length of 6 anteriors. I like the magnetic articulators. They're very easy to work on. It allows you to hold the denture base in your hand easily and work freely without having a cumbersome articulator to deal with in your lap. I like to set up the lower first. All the lower teeth have to be right on the ridge, and you want to set up the upper denture accordingly. So we're going to start by removing the lower right quadrant of the bite rim. We'll take that right to the lower midline. Just want to remove enough wax so that we can set the teeth in position and have them supported. If you remove too much, you'll be adding, and you want to minimize your work needs. Okay. We're going to heat our spatula and start scoring the wax. You want to set that lower tooth so it corresponds with the upper midline. Oh my God. Okay. I'm going to seal these rims down to the model so they don't continue to move on me here. You want to set the tooth right over the center of the ridge where it would normally grow out of the bite rim, or out of the tooth ridge. As you look down the bite rim, make sure that your teeth are going to start following a pattern right to the retromolar pad. The base of the canine is slightly out at the gingiva compared to the central incisors. I like to work the wax right away rather than adding cold wax later. The cold wax tends to peel away from the wax you've already worked with, and this makes it easier to continue on and finish carving right away without too much additional work. I'm going to set the entire lower right quadrant. In this case, the patient's left. These are 10-degree teeth. But we're still going to set them, for now, right in line with that flat plane that the doctor carved the bite rim to. Just let the bite rim push the tooth into place. Now you can see if this is the center of the ridge, we're going a little off here. Got to push that tooth in a little bit more. I'm just going to heat my wax up a little bit. Force that over. Depending on the bite, sometimes if the patient's a little collapsed, the bite's closed a little bit, you may have to grind the bottom of the tooth. I try not to grind the occlusal surface, the top surface of the tooth. If the patient's bite is off and you have to reposition the teeth after the first try-in, you don't want to score the occlusal surface that the factory made. You can mill in the bite later, but I prefer to take the material from underside and leave the tooth in nice shape. All right, now we want to flame the area we worked on. Get the denture ready for carving. And I'm just going to set this in a water bath and chill it so the teeth don't move right away. Let's start removing the bite rim from the other side. Again, just taking off the amount of wax we need to get the setup going. Softening the wax. Now we'll set in the next denture tooth. here's where you want to check and make sure you're still on mark with your midline, where the doctor inscribed it in the wax. We're right on target. Again, the base of the canine is out slightly. And we'll again set the lower right hand side, patient quadrant, and we want to head right towards the center of the retromolar pad. Check your line, make sure we're heading in this direction. Now we'll do a little finish work on the wax. Get this ready for carving. I don't put too much detail with the wax in the initial try-in, because if the bite changes and we have to move the teeth, it'll be unnecessary work. All the final detail work, muscles, heavy root areas can all be placed in before we finish the case. Now I'm going to chill it slightly again, but not fully. I want the wax a little bit soft for my next step. For 10-degree teeth, we have a 10-degree template, this device here. I'm going to press this onto the teeth. This has your curve of Spee and your curve of Wilson. This is used for a 10-degree or a 33-degree tooth. I'm going to press that down slightly so that we have contact with the anteriors and the posteriors take that proper curve. We check inside to make sure there's full contact all around in that same shape. This creates, again, curve of Wilson in the posteriors, curve of Spee. If we were doing 0-degree teeth or 20-degree teeth, you would use a flat plane base for occlusion. You can see how we have a very slight dip here from the 10-degree we used to get this in position. At this point, I like to start carving the denture tooth. I can chill it a little bit more. I don't want it too gummy. Gummy meaning soft. Even a little bit more firm, so you can carve the gingiva away, expose the tooth. And denture teeth are manufactured in a way that you have a finish line on the base of the tooth that you can follow. You'll feel it with the tool as you become accustomed to using it. And we're not going to do a great deal of detail here. We just want to expose the tooth to its proper length. Now we'll carve the inside as well. Make sure there's no wax on the occlusal surface. That's nice and clean, so when it interdigitates with the opposite side, the upper, there's no wax causing interference or change the bite. Again, we're going to flame that. You can see we need a little more wax on this molar. That would be the root that's exposed there. It didn't leave much of a carving surface when we waxed it up. We can simply add that. Flame it. Okay. I'm going to wipe off any excess wax from the heat that might be on the teeth. I'm going to keep them nice and clean. If you don't, when you go to process the denture, you'll get a little pink acrylic running up onto those teeth where you left the wax. I'm going to chill it in cool water. And please make sure you change the water for every setup. We don't want to cross-contaminate. Okay. And now we're ready to start the work on the upper denture. We're going to remove the wax on the upper as we did the lower, starting with the patient's left, my right. Remove what we need from the lingual. Start the midline again. What we need from the buccal. And again, we just want enough wax taken off so we can set the teeth without adding or detracting too much more. You can see where it's a little tight here, and I don't have room for a tooth, so I'm going to take a little bit more off that. That's going to make it easier for me to set a tooth on. You want to establish a little bit of overbite and overjet, about 1 millimeter of each for an indentureless patient. You don't want too much interference when they move the teeth around. You just want them to have a nice chewing surface, getting enough contact that they can cut their food and grind. We're ready to set the first tooth. Again, about 1 millimeter overbite and overjet will be good here. And we want to add the tooth, so we're going to eventually form a little diamond pattern right in between the lower centrals and upper centrals. Again, if this were a female, you would have the lateral incisor a little bit higher than the central incisor. For a male, pretty much along the same line and square. And the canine is going to be slightly tilted in this way, just like the lower was tilted outwards. And everything is going to work in its proper pattern. We'll start to set the molars in proper occlusion right over the lower denture teeth. You can see how they form a triangular pattern. Everything is spacing properly against the lower teeth. Not only buckle, but make sure you check inside. A little difficult to see, but check inside to make sure you have lingual contact as well. And let's work the wax as we go, so we don't have to add it later. Now it's important to make sure that the upper teeth stay over the ridge. The number one cause of denture fracture, midline fracture, is that the teeth on the upper are splayed too far off the ridge. If they're too far out, the lower, being further inside, is going to create a wedge and split the denture. So it's very important that the upper teeth are kept over their ridge as well. That's why we set up the lower first. If the upper teeth aren't occluding with the lowers properly, and they're too far out, you may have to go into a crossbite, and they may have to be set in an opposite contact so that you don't have that risk of breakage on the upper. You see here they're getting a little bit outside the ridge. We're going to set this in a normal pattern so you can see how to properly set the denture teeth. But if I were going to talk to the doctor about this case, I would consider moving these teeth into a crossbite so that they are a little more in line with the center line of the ridge here. Not all patients will accept that, but you have to explain to them that they're taking the risk of having their denture fracture in the future from uneven pressure. You also see here the doctor's high smile line mark, and our teeth are following that exactly where we want. Just the slightest bit of pink at the high smile point. Again, we'll flame this. And we're going to chill it. And we'll start cleaning up our wax a little bit. Again, you don't want to leave any wax on the surface of the tooth. It could transfer in the final processing to having a little bit of pink acrylic on the teeth, and we don't want that. And let's chill that one more time before we start the other side. All right, let's start the final quadrant. Okay, about enough wax removed to begin. Okay, as you can see, we have that small diamond pattern here that we're looking for. In Europe, the technicians tend to do more of an irregular setup. There are books on different varieties of setups you can do. In the United States, we tend to do a very straight Hollywood type of a setup. Once again, if this was a female, you might have the laterals up a little higher. A male patient, you'd have them in a fairly straight line. Canine toes in slightly. And we'll start our posteriors. Finish our setup. And the final tooth. Now if we got any wax on top of the lower teeth from setting up the upper, we'll have to clear that off before we check and make sure that our occlusion is proper. Finish our wax up first. You want to make sure you smooth out the palate a little bit. Some doctors want to put rugai on the palate. It seems popular now just to go with a smooth finish, but when you do put rugai on the palate, it stimulates the tongue and increases the ability for the patient to taste. When they have a smooth surface, their tongue is not stimulated properly. We can show you how to put that in before we do the final wax up for finish. But for now, again, with the try-in, we're just going to leave everything smooth. And again, we're going to flame this. Flaming it gives a nice, even working surface. Gets rid of all the lumps in the wax. Use it just like a paintbrush. Don't get too close or it'll melt. And we'll chill it. Now that our denture is set up, we want to check the occlusion. See if there's any high spots that need to be removed so the patient can move freely in the denture. We're going to use articulating paper. Place in between the teeth. Move the articulator around, side to side, front, back, And when you see this, these are the points where the denture is hitting. We have to relieve those areas to make the denture move smoother in the patient's mouth. We're going to do the other side right away. Put the articulating paper inside and close. Side to side, front to back. These are the spots where the articulating paper indicates where you have higher contact in some places, as you see on the right-hand side, but on the left, there's areas where there's no contact at all. So when we remove the high spots with our grinder, it'll close the bite and be a more smooth occlusion. Now that we've checked the occlusion, we're going to clean up the denture bases, removing the excess wax from holding it onto the model. Take our spatula and re-round our rolls. And we'll flame those edges. Do the same with the lower. Now the lower we made in shellac. The upper base plate, as you remember, was vacuum formed, it's more durable. So when we carve the shellac base, we have to be a little more gentle so we don't fracture it. It's not as sturdy a material. Again, this is the economy material. And we'll flame that. Of course, be careful not to get your fingers. Make sure our model's clean. When you present this to the dentist, he's not going to want to see wax all over your models. Everything nice and clean, neat, and orderly. Presentation means quite a bit. When the patient sees the articulated denture, as a dentist presents it to them, they're going to want to see a nice, clean, beautiful restoration ready for them. And that concludes our session. Please refer to your manual if you have any questions about denture setups.